Consider this. Sometimes you're toast, sometimes you're toasted. So were the words of my guest as she described the tenuous nature of her new position as head of Peoria's District 150 schools. But what is it that would make someone accept such a tenuous position, and how does she plan to stay on the plate as opposed to getting back in the toaster? We're about to find out. I'm Yvonne Greer, and my guest is Dr. Sharon Desmoulins-Carrat. Next on Consider This. Dr. Sharon Desmoulins-Carrat is the new superintendent of Peoria's District 150 schools. Welcome to Consider This.
Thank you.
We met many, many moons ago, back in the late to mid 80s, when you were still at the Peoria Tri-County Urban League. So education has always been important to you. Did that start for you as someone who maybe studied education, or did that start for you as a young person who just loved school?
I would say there's a lot of teachers and educators in my family. It might be part of my DNA. My father was the headmaster of an all-boys school. It's a British system, so I think I've gotten a lot of his sort of qualities. But I love kids, and I love to go to bat for them, and I love to make sure that I really enjoy making sure that they get the very, very best. So and that's what I would like to do for the kids, the 14,000 kids that I have in Peoria Public Schools.
So take me back to when you were a kid and your dad was the headmaster at the all-boys school. What was education like for you?
I had great teachers. They were caring, they were loving. I loved books. I had access to a lot of books. I enjoyed reading the newspaper also. And so the teachers were great role models, and so it was a very pleasant experience.
So did you have one of those sort of Laura Ingalls Wilder moments where you went, I want to be a teacher just like Miss So-and-so, or was that something that came to you later?
Actually, you know what? When I applied to attend Bradley University, I signed up and was accepted in the computer science department because I really wanted to move far away from education as possible. I'm like, there are too many educators in my family. I would like to do something different. And somehow I ended up at Westlake. I didn't like the programming. I didn't really like debugging, where you're by yourself with a machine, you know, trying to determine what didn't work and what happened along the way, and working through the algorithms. And so it was destined.
So that human interaction is really important to you.
Very important.
And so how did you make the switch?
I ended up, there's a couple of people on campus that I really liked, Dr. Pendleton, and then a couple of other professors, including Dr. Cassimbera, and a number of other, Dr. Smith, a number of other professors that were just really caring and loving at Bradley, and they made my classes fun, and I continued and ended up doing student teaching in a number of buildings in Peoria Public Schools. Ended up actually observing at a number of schools. You know, you have to do your clinicals.
Yeah.
I student taught at Manual, and never thought I would ever come back to, you know, to be the principal of Manual years and years later.
That's a nice full circle moment.
Yeah. So, it sort of just happened, I would say. It was destined.
So how did you know, yes, this is it? Was there a moment with a particular student? Was it a period in time?
The clinicals, getting into buildings, working with young people, just working with great educators, I knew this was it for me. And as I said, I love kids. And I'm always apologizing to them. I'm always sort of saying, you guys are so brilliant. You're smarter than I am. And I love when they're just having a good time. I remember as a principal, parents would get mad at me because they'd say, this kid is really, really sick and shouldn't be at school today. But they want this trophy at the end of the year. We had lots of trophies like perfect attendance, yes. And if you have an A average or a 3.0 average, you can get another trophy. So my little kindergartners all the way through 4th grade, they set goals to attain those trophies year in and year out. We had a lot of time, a great time. You know, we had fencing, different opportunities for them. There was soccer in elementary school.
And that's got to warm your heart as an educator to know that come heck or high water, they want to be in school.
They want to be in school. Suzuki, piano lessons, violin lessons, great relationship with parents. Our PTO did a lot. So it was this was just great time, and I enjoy those moments.
So let's move this forward in time. You started with the Tri-County Urban League.
Right.
And then you moved into the Peoria District 150 school system.
Right.
And now just recently were named the new superintendent of Peoria's District 150 schools.
Right.
What did that feel like when they finally said yes?
You know, it was the euphoria from just the community and from everybody. I'm just inspired and motivated by the excitement, and so for me, it's like, okay, there's work to do. I understand the vision in terms of inspiring, graduating, preparing young people for the world of work and to be successful in college and to do very well, have a great experience, a great educational journey, and so I'm focused on that. And I'm humbled, very, very humbled and excited that I was somehow selected to lead that charge. So, but the entire community, the kids, the staff, that's where I get my inspiration from. So it's more inspirational. I just get that humility and that inspiration from the excitement and the trust and the confidence. I think that's the most humbling thing. People, even at Manual, when I went to Whittier, they were just so happy and satisfied, and everyone said, "You're going to do a great job," and that confidence is not taken for granted. So I'm serious about the work, and we're at a great place right now, and I'm excited about the future for Peoria Public Schools.
And there is work to be done. Does it sway you at all to know that this position has changed faces and names so often over the past several decades, and now you're in trying to do the same work? How do you intend to run things differently?
Yeah, the collaboration is important. The communication is important. You've heard of the Alignment Rockford, which presents, there's potential for a nice framework to continue to mobilize the community and resources around a few, maybe 3 or 4 areas of interest. And I have some ideas, and these ideas are aligned to a strategic plan, which was adopted on January 25th of last month by our board. And early childhood is a big, big one. I would love to see a more universal support for the early childhood age children. Mm-hmm. We have about 464 kids on a waiting list that are not being served. So when they get that early start, they're better prepared kindergartners and then more successful first graders and second graders. So just as a community, mobilizing around, so how can we leverage what's happening in the community and in Peoria Public Schools? So I would like to see a lot more collaboration, and that's I would say a difference in terms of my style. Just bringing the entire community together. I'm working with Caterpillar. Just sent a request to them, and we're working collaboratively around some Six Sigma projects, around our budget, for example. How can we better take a look at all of the funds and see if we could be more efficient and more effective with the dollars that we have? And that's another Six Sigma project, and even another Six Sigma project around a STEM middle school.
And if we can come back to that community involvement conversation and talk about what we as families in Peoria's District 150 can do, because there is work to be done,
right.
As far as parental support,
right.
family involvement.
Right.
What types of things do you have in the works to sort of spark that, foster that,
right.
improve upon that?
So families are different places along the spectrum, right? So some families can assist children with the homework, and they could provide that every family, really what I would like families to do is, even as an elementary principal, I would tell the kids, hey, we have to read for a minimum of 30 minutes a day, every day. And so families can assist with that, especially the younger kids. Either being read to or reading, that's very, very important.
And why is that so important? I think people need to hear that.
Yeah, so they have to be able to communicate not only verbally, but also in a written format. And then, they have to be able to read in their 5 components. We have the phonemic awareness. They have to be able to pronounce their words, the phonics, the fluency, read with some rhythm, right? Mm-hmm. And then the comprehension is important. You have to be able to understand what you've read and interpret what you've read, and sometimes clarify and summarize. So those are important skills that are necessary to be successful in life. In any position, you have to be able to read, comprehend, summarize, clarify, interpret, analyze. Those are important skills, and it's more than just recall. We talk about rigor in our business, mm-hmm. where kids are evaluating, they're summarizing, they're analyzing, and so, reading for understanding, right? There's a big emphasis, reading for understanding, so that's important. So parents can do that. Or parents can also, there's some parents, they have 2 jobs, they have 3 jobs, and I used to tell my parents at certain buildings, one of the last building, I was a principal at this building, I would say, hey, I understand you have, it's tough and there are lots of challenges, but you're involved if you send the kid to school every day. All I would like is send the kid to school every day on time, and if I need you, I can get a hold of you, or please respond. And so I had different, I mm-hmm. called it equity. I had different requirements for different parents
so
based
those families
on their,
that have more time available to
right.
them, have more financial resources available
right.
to them, you might call on them to help as much as they can.
Right.
And to those that don't have the amount of time and resources
right.
available to them, just make sure the child comes to school so they can be educated.
Right, right.
So when you came back to District 150 after this most recent time was in Decatur and Springfield before that.
Danville.
Danville, I'm
mm-hmm.
sorry. You mentioned the 4 agreements were going to be part of your tenants with
right,
your staff
right,
and teachers. Right. Tell me about those and why they're important to you.
Yeah, it's just, I'm always looking for ways to minimize stress and what I call drama. I used to tell my teachers the work is intense. So we want to avoid self-inflicted pain and stress. And so the 4 agreements, number 1 has to do number 1 is to be impeccable with your words. So being as positive as possible.
No gossip.
No gossip. And it's hard for human beings. And sometimes we may get off track, but it was funny at my old district. They would say, Dr. Karat, I try to be as impeccable, or you'd be proud of me. It was so cute. And number 2, do not make assumptions. Try to ask questions instead, and because it's just additional stress. And then don't take anything personally as number 3. And then number 4 is, and those are hard, not taking things personally. And then number 4 is doing the very, very best that you can in whatever you do.
And I can even see scenarios where all of those would come into play. And we should probably mention the 4 agreements are from Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The 4 Agreements.
That's right. He has a 5th one too, I think.
Being impeccable with your word. I would imagine that it's challenging, especially when, superintendents come, superintendents go. You may or may not like the performance that they're doing. To hold that level of impeccable word when
right,
you're speaking
right.
of them and trying to affect change within your district.
I'm aspiring to live up to those.
And then remembering, because, Change 150 was very vocal and very outspoken in saying what they did and did not like about your predecessor, Dr. Granita Lathan. But they've been very supportive of your coming in. What inroads are you making with them to try to keep the lines of communication open and maintain those 4 agreements, even with people who are watching you with a very watchful eye?
Right. So I was really humbled because I didn't really know them, and they did not know me. I think they did their homework and probably came highly recommended through individuals in the community who may have worked with me. So that was again, as I said, very humbling. And for me, what I do is what I would like to do, and what I will continue to do is to stay focused on the job at hand. There's some really tough decisions that that's upcoming. We had a board meeting last night, for example, and we talked about reconfiguration. That's a huge topic, and I think the kids went to. Did Ginger attend Valeska Hinton?
No.
Oh, okay. So just reconfiguring what Valeska has been known for in terms of pre-K programs, kindergarten programs, and first grade programs, and with a focus more on serving the pre-K population, more of the pre-K kids, and rerouting the kindergartners and the first graders back to their home school, for example. And then we're looking at reconfiguring our elementary levels, our middle school level, and even some of the high schools, at least one, because right now we have what I call jagged configurations.
And what does that mean?
Regarding grade levels.
Okay.
So an elementary building could be, we may have out of 13 elementary buildings, there's there's a building that's a K4 building, there's a building that's a K5 building, you have K6 buildings, you have K8 buildings.
So trying to create some uniformity.
Trying to create some uniformity, because we have some middle schools that are absorbing kids as 5th graders, 6th graders, and 7th graders. They're all coming in, at the same time, but at different levels. That makes for sort of a really rambunctious, right?
Because of those different age levels, they're different educational levels, and they're different emotional, hormonal levels with kids of that age group.
Exactly. So more cohesiveness, more alignment, and some people may not be happy. We're working for parents, we're working for administrators, but the communication is very, very important. And I usually say, let's focus on what is in the best interest of kids. This is for kids. It's not what's convenient for the adults. It's what's convenient for the children, and for and for the betterment of our community overall.
What do you see as the greatest challenge that lies ahead of you?
I would say our budget, and there's a lot of discussion right now about education and funding, particularly around the funding formula and the inequity that continue to persist. We have a more, in terms of poverty, about 75% poverty rate, which makes for, we'll need more programming so that we can provide more support, which cost, right, which calls for additional dollars. And so getting those dollars to do those things, like I've talked about the Office of Social Emotional, that's pillar 2 out of our strategic plan, and there are 5 pillars. The first one has to do with the curriculum and making sure it's rigorous, and it's not only college based in terms of the IB programs that you and I have talked about, and the AP programs, and we're doing a great job in that area, but even a little bit more career focused. But even with the Office of Social and Emotional, where we're focusing, the idea is to focus on the whole child and to sort of provide the treatment and support that's needed to counteract either those adverse childhood experiences that they may have encountered, or trauma that they may have encountered. You need specialized individuals to provide that support. You need that time. You need individuals to do that. Again, it's our teachers cannot do it. We should not expect teachers to be able to do that, but it needs to be done.
It needs to be incorporated within the districts.
It needs to be, and then there's additional. You need to bring in some specialized staff, individuals to do that. That's going to cost, and so we're trying to balance. And
so, is there any foreseeable vision as to how the cost will be covered?
Yeah, what I've done right now is I'm trying to see if we could get some support from our community while we're waiting for the state to sort of help out and do its fair share, because Illinois has the most unfair funding formula. So the wealthiest kids are getting a lot more on the dollar. They'll say, they're getting. On the dollar, they're getting $1, and the kids that are most in need will get like 87 cents on the dollar in terms of services. So the good thing is the politicians are talking about the funding formula, and they're struggling with how they're going to rectify it. I think there are two proposals on the table. One is called evidence-based funding formula, and the other one is called Senate Bill 1, and more focused on kids most in need. The dollars will follow them. So at least I'm excited. There's hope. But overall, I'm very excited about our community. As you know, the community is behind us. There's a lot of requests regarding assisting and supporting, and that's what it's going to take. Peoria Public Schools cannot do it alone, and so that's one of my approaches, is calling people in and having conversations with various managers and leaders. I spend a lot of time with the mayor and his team.
So bring in the political community, the business community.
Yes,
gotcha.
Yes, a variety of stakeholders, and there's a role for everyone to play.
What are your thoughts on vocational learning? Because I've had parents say, you know, not everybody is cut out for the college track.
Right. So that's another reason I kind of ran in here, because I had a conversation. I was having a conversation with, for example, the principal at Manual, Miss Young, and we were talking more about a different programming for Manual, more about vocational, and they have a great manufacturing program there with Mr. Rice. He has a good relationship with Caterpillar, and they're in support of it, that program, and they're collaborating more on how it can be augmented. So there's that piece, and then we talked about education and the education pathway. We have 36 pathways in our districts.
Okay.
I think we're providing more opportunities regarding, they call it career technical education, than probably any other district in this area downstate, to be honest with you. 36 pathways, that's a lot of options for kids, from cosmetology, barbering, welding, construction, culinary.
And tell me the arts are in there, because I would have been lost without my choir and my band.
It's being revitalized. It was sort of neglected, and Mary Jo is back, and Sharon Reed and Tanya Jenkins, and they're in the process of, they presented to a board, 2 board meetings ago, in reference to recommendations for revitalizing the arts in our district. So I'm excited about that. Again, we're going to need funds, because you know, when you're strapped, those quote unquote what's considered thrills, and they're not, are the first to go. And the arts, there's a place for the arts, and we know the research in terms of kids who are involved in arts and how it's correlated to the academic achievement. So it's really important.
So what is the most exciting prospect for you as you look forward in your new tenure as superintendent?
I think everything is really exciting. The strategic plan was great. It was it's a good base, a good document. It's a living document. It kind of provides the guide in terms of what we want to accomplish. Along with that, in the back of it, there's a scorecard, or what we call our measures, in terms of ways that we're going to measure progress over time. And again, as I said, there are 5 areas. The budget is one area. The community and parental involvement is another area. Leadership is another area. And then I talked about curriculum and Office of Social Emotional. I'm really looking towards implementing and getting that up and running, so that the kids can get the support that they need. And then the pathways, it's continuing to grow. And then there's just a lot of excitement in terms of the possibilities and the transformation. So I'm excited about that. And we'll work hard. We have to work hard overall together as a community. And then, you know, overall, our community, there's high unemployment rate. I don't know if you saw the research on poverty in Illinois, and they talked about, you know, we have to all kind of work together to get Peoria back to that high vibrancy, robust economy that we're used to. But we will need jobs also for our families. When families are employed, you know, they're more involved, and people are happier, and you have less abuses and all of those sorts of things.
So I know there's a lot to cover.
I know.
Unfortunately, we are out of time, but I thank you so very much for being with us here on Consider This, and wish you the very best in your endeavors, and welcoming and creating those collaborative efforts. All the best to you.
Thank you very much.
My thanks again. We've been with Dr. Sharon DeMoulin-Karat. She is the new superintendent of Peoria's District 150 schools. And as always here on Consider This, we always pause for a moment to take a look at our featured artist of the week.
I work in any medium that inspires me at the time, but I've been doing antique ceiling tin for the last 20 years because I'm an antique dealer, and I got started by collecting the tin and putting it in my barns, and then I decided, gee, I'd love to make art out of this. I love the 1890s. I love the Art Deco period. I love color and form and pattern on pattern. I love Gustav Klimt and Mondrian. I love sculpture. I consider myself a sculptor, not a painter. So I try to put it all together in pieces of art. When we were antique dealers, we did 42 shows a year. So whenever I found great tin, I would bring it home and kind of hide it in the barn for what I planned to do with it. And we put a lot of it in this house, in the farm. And when people would come from Chicago to buy art from us, they'd say, oh, how wonderful, why don't you just take a piece down and make me a piece of art out of it? And that's what started the whole career of painting antique ceiling tin. It's color and it's pattern, and I'm doing collages now. I started out doing flat painted pieces where the tin had a pattern, and I would just glaze the tin. Now I'm cutting the tin apart, of course pieces that are not rare, pieces that are damaged of ceiling tin, and I'm making collages. And I hand mix the colors. I grind my own pigments. I hand mix the colors, and I put on many, many different layers of glaze on each piece. And it takes many days, weeks to dry. And so I do all kinds of different things. I change my style and what I'm doing about every week. It's whatever inspires me that morning when I get up. I'm so excited that God gave me another day of life to create. I just get up and say, what am I going to do today? And anything that inspires me, I grab it and say, I'm going to make something out of this. So it's the whole ball of wax. It's the color, it's the pattern, it's the found objects, it's the size, it's the tin. It creates one whole little environment, a mini garden, some of them are.
Thanks to our featured artist of the week, and thanks again to Dr. Sharon DeMoulin-Karat for being with us here on Consider This. And thank you. We'll see you next time.